We've talked about ER and IR verbs, so just for a quick review of how we conjugate them. When we did our notes, we talked about just refreshing these terms here. So a verb is a what? An action. So something that has to be in progress. Always keep in mind that for a verb to be in action, somebody has to be doing it. You don't have to worry about gender with verbs. You just have to worry about making sure that it agrees. So if it's just a verb by itself in its infinitive form, which is the next one, what does that mean? The what? Right, it's not conjugated, it's the original, it's the unchanged form of the verb that ends in AR, ER, or IR. Okay.
Some of us are actually trying to learn. Can you please be quiet?
To conjugate, we have to always make sure that we make the verb agree. The verb and the subject always go together. With your subject, whenever you start getting these my's, yours, or our, these words will come up in the next chapter. We'll officially learn about them, but don't look at those words and let them confuse you in making a verb agree. Just make sure that you are paying attention to the noun or the subject itself, like we have done in the past with our subject pronouns. So our subject is always the person or thing doing the action. For the verb to not end in AR, ER, IR, it has to be changed to agree with the subject. So that's what a conjugation is. The verb changes to agree with the subject, change it. And then your subject pronoun is what we had to do with, what we had to learn first to then be able to learn how to conjugate. It's a word that replaces nouns. We should be familiar with always in the first box the yo form, always in the second box the to form. And that's the informal you, 5 U's in Spanish. El, ella, usted. Usted is the formal you. All of those are on the singular side. Then we jump over to the plural. We've got nosotros, feminine and masculine. And then we don't have to worry about vosotros. Then we have, what's vosotros, by the way? Do we remember? The you all, the informal you all. But we substitute it with the you all formal, which is the ustedes, or they for the bottom box. So singular side on the left, plural side on the right. And again, we don't have to worry about vosotros. We're just going to substitute it with ustedes. So conjugating concept, same exact thing that we did with AR verbs. You drop off the AR, ER, IR in this case. You're left over with the stem. Then you attach the appropriate ending to match the subject. So conjugations for ER and IR verbs for the yo form are O. Okay, so that's O across the board for AR verbs, for ER verbs, for IR verbs. Across the board, anything to do with regular present tense verbs ends in O. To form is the same for both. Yes. And then el, ella, usted, or anything else that's singular. Y. And then this is where it changes. Nosotros form is EMOS for ER verbs, IMOS for IR verbs. And then ellos is EN, or anything else that is plural. Ellos, ellas, ustedes, anything that doesn't include myself and it's plural gets the bottom box. We end up using the bottom 2 boxes the most when it's not in column form. It's easier to tell. Your book, though, gives it to you in column form. Instead of giving it to you the singular on the left and the plural on the right. A note about, I've been mentioning this the last couple of days, but you may want to jot it down somewhere if you haven't already, that the verb ver is the verb to see, but there's a slight spelling change you need to do with it. If we were to conjugate ver and drop that ER, we would just end up with V as the stem, which we do for all the other conjugations. For the first one, however, we have VE as the stem. So just for the yo form, the stem is VE, not V, so that it ends up looking like the rest of the conjugations here. And it sounds like it, so that's why we need that spelling change. So instead of just VO, it's going to be VEO for the yo form. So jot that down on your green list, your verb list, so that you remember that just for the yo form that change. Otherwise, it would look odd compared to the other verbs. Okay. Let's try a few conjugations with the verb beber, which is to drink. La señora bebe. Now, if we were to accidentally add an accent at the end, it would become the word for baby, bebe. So, no accents that we have to worry about with verbs yet. That will come up later for preterite or past tense. Las muchachas beben, because it now became plural. What if we do nosotros? Good. Bebemos with an EMOS. And then tú, bebes, and yo. Now notice that we have something there. Right, so if we already have a verb, what do we do to the second verb? Keep it the same. Original infinitive form with the ER attached, because what does that mean? I need to drink. So beber is to drink. It is, but it would only be yo bebo if you didn't have the necesito there. Because you have necesito already conjugated, always conjugate the first verb, don't conjugate the second verb. Only if they're in a row, back to back. Because I need, I'm doing the needing, the verb is being conjugated, the action is being done by the subject, but to drink is not actually being done. So it's just to drink, the infinitive form of the verb. Let's try escribir. Yo escribo. La profesora escribe. Los alumnos escriben. Mariana y yo escribimos with an IMOS. Careful not to do EMOS on that one. And tú escribes. Good. Okay. All right, so the two verbs in a row rule, there has to be nothing at all in between for you to conjugate the first verb, not conjugate the second one. Okay. And we did a quiz over meanings yesterday, so hopefully we'll be good with meanings. For today's quiz, all you have to do is conjugations. So when we do conjugate, we do have to worry about what we just did with the two verbs in a row. So if we have two verbs in a row, always conjugate the first one. Don't conjugate the second one. Remember my little graphic to remind you. Has to be back-to-back, nothing in between, no commas, no ands, nothing else in between, because the second verb, no one's actually doing that action. The first verb has to be conjugated because it's actually doing something. Okay, so always, 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 always conjugate the first verb unless there's two in a row, immediately following each other. Conjugate the first one, but not the second one. Okay. Common verbs that we had before that would be first verbs in a row would be necesitar, desear, esperar. Now we're adding to the list deber. What does deber mean? Beber is to drink. Deber is to have to. So I have to study. I have to swim. I have to learn. I have to something. The first verb would be conjugated. The second verb would not. Okay. Do we need more practice on ER-IR verbs? Okay, the conjugation part is what we're doing today. So if we need to, we'll back up to this later. But I have this on Schoology. We can do workbook practice. Also on Schoology, I have more things. So if we don't need more practice now, we'll take the quiz. Then after the quiz, I've got a battleship, I've got a dice game, or we can play bingo to help you.
Quizzes, there will be stuff like the last, whatever it is, thing, like I open, you gotta like translate that.
You don't have to translate a sentence, no.
Okay.
For today, all you're doing is conjugations. But for tomorrow, for Friday, you'll have to not only conjugate, but also know the meanings, because the verbs will be in English. Remember, you have the Quizlet link on my website and on Schoology to help you with meanings of the verbs. The conjugation part should be easy, and that's all we're doing today. Don't forget your cards are due tomorrow as well. If they do not have numbers with each verb, and initials with each card, then you're not going to get any credit for it. So make sure you have those two things, and those reminders are also on Schoology. Okay. There's also extra references from the YouTube video sites if you need more practice. I also have a ton more on Schoology that you need. And so we're going to take our quiz, and after our quiz, we're going to go to week 11 on Schoology, and then the ER/IR folder, and then the dice game or the battleship. You guys pick, and you can open it up and look at the directions from there. You roll for a verb and you roll for a subject for the dice game. And then for the battleship, I believe we've played in here before. The top board is the same exact thing as the bottom board. Top board, you're just making, you're mapping out ships in different places. And so once you do, basically you can keep track. The top part, you'll have your maps, your boats mapped out. The bottom part is where you can try to guess, and so you're going to go across ver for the L form, and then if you did that, then you would have a match. So you would conjugate wherever those two meet. So whichever one you think would help you more, but for tomorrow, make sure you know that you need meanings and conjugations, and you'll need the verbs will be in English for your quiz tomorrow. Today they'll be in Spanish.